and a promotion most certainly meant a transfer, which meant changing home, habits, friends, a destiny yet to be discovered. In all honesty, he was fed up with Mascalipa and the surrounding area, not with the inhabitants, who were no worse or better than anywhere else, having more or less the same proportion of hoodlums to honest folk, cretins to smart people, as any other town in Sicily. No, quite frankly, he just couldn't stand the landscape any longer. Mind you, if there was a Sicily he liked to look at, it was this same Sicily of arid, scorched earth, yellow and brown, where little clumps of stubborn green stuck out as if shot from a cannon, where little white, dice-like houses clinging to the hillsides looked as if they might slide down below at the next strong gust of wind, where even the lizards and snakes on summer afternoons seemed to lack the will to take cover inside a clump of sorghum or under a rock, inertly resigned to their destiny, such as it was. And above all, he loved to look at the beds of what had once been rivers and streams. At least that was what the road maps insisted on calling them, the Ipsas, Salsetto, Cocalos, whereas they were now nothing more than a string of sun-bleached stones and dusty shards of terracotta. So, yes, he liked to look at the landscape, but to live in it, day after day, was enough to drive a man crazy, because he was a man of the sea. On certain mornings in Mascalipa, when he opened the window at dawn and took a deep breath, instead of his lungs filling with air, he felt them emptying out, and he would gasp for breath the way he did after a long dive under water. No doubt the early morning air in Mascalipa was good, even special. It smelled of straw and grass, of the open country. But this was not enough for him. Indeed, it practically smothered him. He needed the air of the sea. He needed to savour the smell of seaweed and the faint taste of salt on his lips when he licked them. He needed to take long walks along the beach early in the morning, with the gentle waves of the surf caressing his feet. Being assigned to a mountain town like Mascalipa was worse than serving 10 years in jail. On the same morning that a man who had nothing at all to do with police stations and commissioners' offices had predicted his transfer, he was a government employee of a different sort, that is, the director of the local post office, Montalbano was summoned by his boss, Chief Inspector Libero Sanfilippo, who was a true policeman, one of those who can tell at a glance whether the person in front of him is telling the truth or spouting lies. And even then, that is in 1985, he already belonged to an endangered species. Like doctors who used to have what was once called a clinical eye and could diagnose a patient's malady at a glance, whereas nowadays, if they don't have dozens of pages of test results obtained by high-tech machines in their hands, they can't tell a thing, not even a good old-fashioned flu. Years later, whenever Montalbano happened to review the early years of his career in his head, he always put Libero Sanfilippo at the top of the list. Without appearing to want to teach him anything, the man had actually taught him a great deal. First and foremost, how to maintain one's inner equilibrium when something terrible and shocking happens in front of you. If you let yourself get carried away by any reaction whatsoever, dismay, horror, indignation, pity, you're done for, Sanfilippo would repeat every time. But Montalbano had managed to follow this advice only in part because, at times, despite his great efforts, he was overwhelmed by his feelings and emotions. Secondly, Sanfilippo had shown him how to cultivate the clinical eye that he so envied in his boss. But here, too, Montalbano could only absorb so much of his example. Apparently, that sort of Superman X-ray vision was for the most part a natural gift. The negative side of Chief Inspector Sanfilippo, at least in the eyes of former 60s radical Montalbano, was his utter blind devotion to every sort of instituted order with a capital O. The established order, the public order, the social order.